So lately I received a comment urging me to feel free to check the statues and paintings of Kemet, and I will see very quickly that no African features are present on those statues. They mostly look Eurasian or North African. Okay, so I was like, okay, I've been planning to do this, so and I've done this already. I guess they didn't check my other videos, but yes, I was like, okay, this is the right time to introduce this new series about the pharaohs of Kemet. Who are the pharaohs of Kemet? Who were the pharaohs of Kemet? We're gonna see the artifacts that they left behind them, since it is often said that the pharaohs were mostly Eurasian and looked Eurasian too. Today we are going to take a look at the statues of the pharaohs from each dynasty of Kemet. We will see if many of them have the typical Eurasian phenotypes that they so love to talk about. In this series, we will go over all the pharaohs from each dynasty. I mean the main dynasties, because the intermediate periods are what they are, intermediate periods of turmoil, usually from foreign invasions, except for the first intermediate period, which was caused by internal turmoil. But yeah, this series will check all the pharaohs that we know of, from the first Kemite dynasty to the last one of them. This series is also here to debunk the claim that the 25th dynasty was the only one that had black pharaohs. After watching this series, you will see that the vast majority of Kemite pharaohs were black Africans, and in order to do this, we are going to rely on their iconography, because we here at Kwelimika believe that the artists of Kemet were accurately representing the likeness of their kings and incorporated facial features that were common in the land. In this video, you will see that the pharaohs did indeed have lips like this and noses like that, hence Negroes, as Zahi Hawass so eloquently said. Anyhow, this is the first part of the series. It will focus on the Old Kingdom. If you want more videos like this, give me 1000 likes on this video and we will get a second part within a week. So get the video to 1000 likes and we will get the next part within a week. Alright, let's get right into it. The Old Kingdom pharaohs. So, what do we know about the Old Kingdom? The Old Kingdom lasted about 1000 years. Yes, that's a really long time. They had the longest reigning dynasties. The Old Kingdom of Kemet had about 7 dynasties, dynasties 0 to 6. This was the golden age of Kemet. Great architecture was born here. Great science, mathematics, economy, geometry, all was born here, even great technology in the pyramid buildings. These guys had it all. They had the wealth, the science, the technology, they had it all. They lived in opulence, according to the records. I mean, this is the era when they built the pyramids of Giza, so yeah, they had money and power. 1000 years of prosperity. Those were the good days. Now, something important to mention is that you will often see the term Nswt on the screen. This is pronounced Nswt. This is the original title of the pharaohs. The term pharaoh in ancient Kemetic, Pharaoh or Per, was only used in the later periods of Kemet. The original title was Nswt, which means the one who belongs to Upper Kemet, the king in the south. Then, after the conquest of the two lands, the title of the king became Nswt Pechet, meaning king of Upper and Lower Kemet. But the term Nswt was still often used on its own even later on. This shows you the precedence Upper Kemet had over Lower Kemet, and it makes sense because the founding father of Kemet was from Upper Kemet. This is Narmer, the king in the south. Alright, now enough with the history lessons. Let's see what these Old Kingdom uncles looked like. We start with Dynasty 0 Nswt. Dynasty 0 lasted from 3150 BC to 3050 BC, so about 100 years. Many of the pharaohs from this era are a bit unknown. The ones we know are Scorpion and Narmer. Well, we have no image of Scorpion, but what we do have is an image of Narmer. Look at Narmer, the first Nswt of Kemet. Look at that broad nose, that broad face, and those lips. Pretty telling, and you will see from the later pictures that I'm going to show you, because in this video we're gonna show different angles of the same pictures so that you have full details. So let's continue looking at his features. That looks clearly like a typical black male. I mean, look at this from this angle. That nose is a typical African nose, broad and flat, those lips protruding with the typical facial prognatism of the Africans, so common in Africa. Yet they are so quick to say, oh no, the Egyptians were Eurasians. Clearly they state this, but they don't show the originals that have typical African features. This is why they boldly claim these things. I remember watching one video by a French YouTuber. Actually, it was two French YouTubers. They were like, oh, only the 25th dynasty had black pharaohs, the rest were Eurasians. I was like, okay, I'm gonna challenge you. You say this because you're not showing every dynasty, every pharaoh, because it's hard. There are like 20 something dynasties, native dynasties, African dynasties, let's just say. There are like 25 of them. So that's why they make claims like this. But when you look at the original, you're like, well, this is clearly a black male. See the other picture? Again, that facial prognatism is even more apparent here. There is the Black History Man, the British writer Robin Walker. He always likes to call Narmer Mike Tyson's ancestor. I mean, look at these two men. If you compare the features, you clearly can tell that Narmer was a black man, or that the artist was depicting a black male. You can imagine the artist being told to depict the pharaoh Mike Tyson, and this is what he will give us, a statue like that one of Narmer. And then we look at the Narmer palette, the famous Narmer palette. I had gone over this in another video. You can go check it out on my channel. The Narmer palette has a wealth of information about the features of the founding population of the Kemites. Look at Narmer, look at his face. If you zoom in like this, you see typical African features, flat, broad nose. Even from the profile, you can tell that it is a flat, broad nose, as opposed to the Asian male he is subduing. You can tell the nose is very aquiline. Clearly, the sculptor of this magnificent artwork was depicting African features. You see full lips there. Look at the body proportions, a typical African. And when you look at his subjects here, one is wearing panther skin or leopard skin, and she has what appears to be locks, because at the bottom of the hair, I don't know if you can see that detail, you can see that there are lines to separate the hair into thick locks. Clearly black Africans. Alright, now we move on to Dynasty 1 Nswt. Dynasty 1 lasted from 3050 BC to 2890 BC. The pharaohs of this period are Hor-Aha, Jer, Jet, Den, Anejib, Semerket, and Ka. Now for these Dynasty 1 pharaohs or Nswt, we don't have many pictures. We don't have many depictions. They didn't live much, so I guess they just didn't have time. We don't know. So again, as I said, we don't have much iconography here. We only have one picture of Nswt Den. And look at this Dynasty 1 Nswt Den. Look at the features being represented on his face. They are typical African features. You can remember the Narmer palette, right? It's the same kind of depiction. Now look at the man he's subduing down there. That is an Asian, clearly. Look at that aquiline nose. Look at that profile. To have the mouth going in, lack of facial prognatism, it's not so common there. So an artist representing the typical Asian would not put facial prognatism, but an artist representing the typical African would put facial prognatism. And this pharaoh then had facial prognatism. He had a flat, broad nose. You can see it's not aquiline as in North Africa and Eurasia in general. So Den was clearly a black male, as the artist is trying to tell us. Then we move on to Dynasty 2. Dynasty 2 lasted from 2890 BC to 2686 BC. Who were the Nswt of this period? We have Hotep Sekemwi, Ra-Neb, Ninetjer, Seth-Perib Sen, and Kasekemwi. All these names sound African to me anyway. So we start with the first one of these pharaohs, of which we have the iconography of. If you don't hear me mention a pharaoh while looking at pictures, that means we don't have iconography of him. I did not find any. There are no records of the iconography. You only see a name, a picture of his name in that list of pharaohs that can be found in one of the temples of Kemet. Right, so Kasekemwi. Look at the features present on Kasekemwi. On the profile view there, you have a typical facial prognatism, and the nose is gone. Everybody knows what happens to the nose of the Kemite statues. I'm not gonna speculate here, so the nose is gone. That's all I'll say. Now we look at the lips, and we have typical African thick lips. Kasekemwi was most likely another black African pharaoh. We look at this other picture from the front, it's even more obvious. It's clear that he was a black man. Anyway, we move on to the next pharaoh, Ninetjer. Ninetjer is obviously a black African male pharaoh of Kemet. Look at his features. First of all, you look at this statue from the profile view. You can already tell those thick lips. I don't know if the picture is clear enough, but you can see thick lips are represented and the nose is so flat and broad that this picture cannot be argued that it is Eurasian. I mean, look at this face. It's the typical African face. Tell us again that only the pharaohs of the 25th dynasty were black. And if you look at the statues from the 25th dynasty, they have less pronounced African features than these. I mean, look at the statues of the pharaohs of the 25th dynasty, this collection. Do you see the typical African features? They're not so pronounced, but we know they were black because they came from Nubia, showing you that Africa is not this place where you only have one feature, right? The reason I'm saying typical is for a reason. It's typical. Doesn't mean everybody looks that way. I'm saying it's typical. Merriam-Webster will help you understand the word typical. Anyway, Nswt, clearly a black male. Look at his other picture of his. Again, it's consistent from all statues of him that we have. It's the same features represented. And this is important. This is an important aspect of this analysis that I'm doing, because there are some statues, as you will see later in this video, stay tuned, there are some statues that are not consistent with others. So you'll see one statue has these kind of features and the rest, they all are the same, and one statue is apart from the group. What do we have to say about that? Keep watching, you will know. And that's it about Dynasty 2. We also don't have a lot of iconography from this period. So yeah, Nswt is the last one we have iconography of. Right, so now we continue with the third dynasty, Dynasty 3. Dynasty 3 lasted from 2686 BC to 2613 BC. Who were the Nswt of this period? We have Sanakt, Djoser, Sekemket, Kaba, and Huni. That name Kaba is actually funny because it's still a name that can be found in Congo. I mean, I have a cousin named Kaba. Anyway, we start with the star of the show, Djoser. This is my favorite pharaoh, like after Hatshepsut. This is my favorite Nswt of Kemet. Why? This is a pharaoh that loved intelligence. This is the pharaoh that loved science. I mean, he loved Imhotep so much, he gave him the money, the power to do what he will with his brain, and Imhotep gave us the pyramids of Saqqara, the first ever pyramid of this world. Thank Djoser, because if he was a guy who didn't care about science and technological advancement and engineering and architecture and beauty, he wouldn't have invested in Imhotep. So this was a great time. The right people met at the same time, because imagine if Djoser was like, I don't care about this, but he has this genius, this incredible genius living in his lifetime, and then he dies, Imhotep dies, nobody invested anywhere. We probably wouldn't have had the pyramids. It was Imhotep who initiated that idea. Djoser was great. Now let's look at his features. So there's something about Djoser that is clear from the onset. His facial prognatism is huge. Like, look at that mouth. It's really coming out, like really out. His nose is gone obviously, but even without the nose, you can clearly see that this was a black man. But we have other pictures of Djoser that are more interesting and pretty telling. Now we look at Djoser from this angle, clearly a black male. Even look at the color on the skin. This picture is so clear, so clear. Thank you, the debunker. Oh, again, this video partly came about thanks to the great contributions of the images of the debunker. His images are always great, clear and detailed. Do you work in a museum? The debunker never told me what he does. Like, I don't know how he gets these images that are so detailed, so clear, but just thank him in the comment section. He never told me anything about how he gets these images. I don't mind. I guess a magician never reveals his secrets. So thank you, the debunker, for your great images. Look at this image. It's so clear. I didn't know this picture or this statue had skin color on it. You can clearly see that it was brown skin color and the paint has incredibly faded. It is so faded that the color must have been dark brown for it to still be there, and we can still see brown there. Anyway, look at his features. I told you about his facial prognatism. It's almost identical to that of the Sphinx of Giza. Anyway, now look at this next picture of Djoser. Here, nobody could remove the nose. And look at those features. Tell me again that this is not a black man that is being depicted. Very full lips, not even full lips, like very full lips. Flat, broad nose, like really broad. This is clearly a black male. And look at this next picture. again, the statue of Nswt, Djoser, very, very, very elegant, very beautiful, great artwork, amazing artwork. Like, this is incredible. Almost 5,000 years ago, they were producing this. Amazing. Anyway, we already saw the face of this statue. Even from this angle, even from this distance, you can clearly see the facial prognatism and the full lips. Now look at this image again, a bas-relief image. Full lips, again, consistent. All the images are consistent with the facial prognatism, the full lips, and the flat broad nose. And if there was painting, I bet it would have been dark brown. Now there is this reconstruction I saw on YouTube from this YouTuber. This YouTuber is really dishonest in his reconstructions because he does not respect the artwork left by the Kemites. He clearly didn't use any other images or iconography of the Pharaoh Djoser to do his reconstruction. Look at it. He only used the bust and that's it. He only used that head and was like, yeah, I'm good. But a better reconstruction of Pharaoh Djoser is that of the king's monologue. Why? Because he used all these images to inform himself. This is a technique that was used by this Dutch reconstructionist. His name is Uterwich something. He reconstructed the faces of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and also Queen Tiye. He used all the images available of Queen Tiye, Akhenaten, and Nefertiti. He used all the iconography available, not just one, but all of them, because we need consistency. And the AI told him, oh, this is what they looked like. Look at these images. You clearly see the AI does not lie. The AI is mathematical. You see these two today, you call them black people. So this is the technique the king's monologue is using, along with some other great techniques. He's just great. Look at the king's monologue reconstruction of Djoser. Pretty accurate because you use all these other images. And here is another image that informed the king's monologue on his reconstruction. Look at that face. Look at those features. Full lips, broad nose, fake beard. The Kemites and the fake beards, they didn't like hair, but I think he's rocking locks there, or maybe he has a wig. Anyway, look at the features present. Flat, broad nose, consistent with all these statues. It is very important. Consistency throughout the artworks is key to inform us on the features of the Kemite pharaohs and the Kemites in general. I'm yet to see a typical Eurasian that looks like this. And then we go to this beautiful image from a bas-relief as well, Djoser portrait from Hobate at the Metropolitan Museum. This is one of the images that convinced me that something was fishy about the narrative on Kemet. I first saw this image in the book of Sheikh Antiope and I was like, why don't they ever show these images? The only image we have is this old picture. Why isn't there a new, better picture? Attempt to hide because they want to make claims like only the 25th dynasty pharaohs were black, the rest were not. But you show this to anybody and they tell you, well, is this a king from Ile-Ife, Nigeria or something? No, you tell them that's a Kemite pharaoh, Djoser, builder of the first pyramid. They'll tell you, what? Okay. Then they keep quiet and then they go back to whatever they do because they don't wanna face the reality. They go into this mode of, I didn't say that, I'm just gonna try to forget, or this was probably an anomaly. Anyway, Djoser, great pharaoh, these are his images. The facial prognatism is consistent throughout his iconography. The flat broad nose and the full lips are also consistent there. Therefore, we can say safely that Djoser was definitely a black male. Now we go to the third pharaoh of Dynasty 3, we have Huni. Huni is clearly also a black male. You can see even if they tried to remove his nose there, you can tell that it was a broad flat nose. Look at his lips too, very protruding and full. And you look at this picture from this angle, the facial prognatism is all the more apparent. Huni was clearly a black male. Alright, we continue with the next dynasty, Dynasty 4. Dynasty 4 lasted from 2613 BC to 2494 BC. Who were the Nswt of the 4th dynasty? We have Sneferu, Khufu, Jedefere, Khafre, Menkaure, and Shepseskaf. Now, these are the pyramid builders. Now, they really went out with this. Since Imhotep's invention and Djoser's achievements in investing in such genius, everybody wanted to do the same. They started investing in technology, science, engineering, and more wealth came to them. So, who is the first pharaoh of which we have a depiction? We don't have a depiction of Sneferu, so we start with Khufu. Look at Khufu. The features on his face are pretty clear there. You see a flat nose. That's not an aquiline nose. Flat and broad. And the lips, full, but not as full as others, yes, but they are still full. Now, in Khufu's family, some mixing occurred. His father may have taken a foreign consort, but Khufu's mother seems to have been a Kemite lady. Yeah, but the other must have been a foreign lady. You will see very soon why I'm saying this. And yes, polygamy was a thing among Kemite pharaohs. Why am I saying that Khufu's father must have taken a foreign consort? Because of Khufu's brother, Rahotep. Look at Khufu's brother Rahotep. Some mixing occurred here clearly, because his mother is unknown, and his mother must have been Eurasian, a Eurasian consort to his father. So Rahotep is Khufu's half-brother in today's conception of things, because again, polygamy was a thing in Kemet. And Khufu himself may have also taken a Caucasian consort. Look at one of Khufu's daughters. Her skin is really pale. She looks quite mixed. So some mixing definitely occurred in Khufu's reign during the beginning of the 4th dynasty. And look at Rahotep's wife as well. These are the images they love to show everyone. Oh, look at the ancient Egyptians. I remember in Metatron's video, these are the images he kept showing. I was like, oh, but dude, there are many more couples that don't look like these two. But okay. Anyway, look at Rahotep's wife, clearly a Eurasian lady. Her skin is so pale. This is how they represented the Eurasians. If you look at this other picture of the pharaoh Seti I conquering Eurasians, look at their skin, very pale too. But yeah, since they are men, they're yellow. So the argument of a tanned olive skin does not really work, because these are Middle Eastern men being conquered, and they were also in a hot region, and their skin, they worked outside, they are soldiers, and their skin is not tanned. How? If the Egyptians were Eurasians, and because of the tanning in the sun, they became so brown as to be confused with other black Africans. Anyway, this is Rahotep's wife, clearly a white lady, and yeah, he mixed. Now here is something interesting. See Rahotep? That's your olive skin complexion being represented in Kemet. See the difference with typical Kemite brown skin? It's very apparent. Kemite's brown skin is similar to East African brown skin. It is very common in Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya. But this is not the complexion you see represented on Rahotep, right? Rahotep is lighter. You clearly see that the Kemites saw a difference in skin tone between people. And something interesting is that his wife's complexion is accurate. She is white. Somehow here, the Westerners don't doubt the complexion. They don't say, oh no, she must have been really inside. Bruh. This is clearly a foreign lady, because Kemite ladies don't look like this. The majority of them, they don't look like this. They don't have this skin tone. The lightest ones are yellow, not white like this lady. She's so pale. Again, here they no longer say this is a metaphorical representation, but I can come and say this is a metaphorical representation. She's not really light. And in reality, her skin is brown because they're representing simply the purity of her youth. You see, why don't you just take the colors at face value? He's wearing white clothes and his skin is brown, and she's wearing white clothes and the collar has many different colors, but you somehow only doubt her skin tone. Anyhow, that's Khufu's family. Some mixing occurred there from his father himself. He might have taken some foreign wife too, and his brother clearly took another foreign wife. Mixing occurred here. And then we have Khufu's son, Djedefere, and clearly Khufu also had some Egyptian wife, because look at Djedefere. Djedefere looks like your typical black male. Look at his facial prognatism, his lips, and his nose is gone as usual. Anyway, look at it from this angle, and the face is pretty much telling you that the artist is representing a black male. And then we move on to Khafre. Khafre, the builder of the second great pyramid. Look at his face. Look at that nose. That nose is typical African nose. That's a typical African nose there. Full lips accompanying this. Now we move on to another image of Khafre. Now, on this image, you see a very aquiline nose, right? Like this is a very aquiline nose. Anyhow, let's compare this statue with other artworks depicting the pharaoh Khafre. Look at the difference. It's very apparent. Here, the features, the nose is completely different. Like, it's really different. And when you compare this to this other image of Khafre, it's even more telling. The nose is no longer aquiline. It's flat. Look at this other statue of Khafre. And again, the nose there is no longer aquiline. Even if it's not there, you can tell the angle from the face, the angle the artist took from the face there. And you can see that it is no longer aquiline. And the facial features show you a prognatism, while this other one did not. Now look at this one. Here we have the same kind of statue, right? I think this material is marble or granite. I don't know. I'm not a geologist. Anyhow, look at this. Look at his features there. Very different from the previous picture. Again, this picture was given to me by the debunker. Another picture of Djoser from another angle. This is why I told you that consistency matters when doing this analysis. Right, there's one image that stands out, and out of the lot of these images that are all the same, they are all similar. Which one should we trust? You tell me. Anyhow, we move on to Khafre's son, Menkaura. Menkaura is also another great pharaoh who builds the third pyramid of Giza. It's funny with the pyramids of Giza, right? They got smaller and smaller and smaller, but all of them are equally beautiful and well built. Yeah, Menkaura. Menkaura is Khafre's son, and look at his features. He looks black. Look at the nose there, the lips. And there is this other image of Menkaura again. See the features there being represented, but there are other more telling images. Look at this image of Menkaura, his wife, and the goddess Hathor. We have three people with the same kind of features. Broad noses and full lips, and facial prognatism is there. Even from this angle you can tell that the facial prognatism is there. Clearly the artist was depicting black people. Now here are some other great images that I just received from the debunker. Like these images are just coming right on time. I was making this video, right? I was planning it, compiling the pictures, and then I just received an email. The debunker has sent you images of Menkaura.
Nice.
So thank you, the debunker. Now, we're not sure if this is Menkaura or his father, but father and son. If the son is black, the father was also black. So it doesn't matter. We can just analyze the features being represented here. This one has even more pronounced African features. Look at the nose, the lips, and we can change the angle here. Beautiful features, African features being represented. Facial prognatism, full lips, and broad nose. And this is an angle from the back. This looks like someone did locks and then they just tied the hair in the back. This is why I believe this crown of Kemet was modeled after dreadlocks. This clearly looks like locks. It's the lock pattern. You can tell when you have a lot of locks, they will do this to you. So that's why I believe that this crown was modeled after locks. Anyway, we move on, and then we have another angle of this statue. Here, the facial prognatism is even more clear. And the nose, guys, the nose, just amazing. Right, we got a profile view. The profile view is even more telling. Look again, the crown looks really like locks that are tied behind. There is a video Mr. Imhotep did on the fact that the crowns were really modeled after African hairstyles. And I was like, yeah, that is absolutely true. He said something along the lines of the Kemites used hairstyle as an indicator of social rank, and this is true. Now, this is a feature that is common in African societies too. In African societies, hairstyles indicate social rank too. Anyway, here is another image of Menkaura. Look at the hair on that statue and look at the features, the broad face, the broad nose, the thick lips. Now, these are the images they don't dare to show on TV because the hair coming out of the crown there, well, they look like locks. They look like that hairstyle the Nubians often wear. It's even still present in Africa today. Can we find this hairstyle in Eurasia, in any Eurasian population? No, you can't. This is a hairstyle we see on Kemite statues, on Nubian statues, and on, yes, West African statues have this hairstyle too. We look at the statue from every angle, and yeah, the hairstyle is very apparent, the facial prognatism very much present, and you can tell that this was a black man. Menkaura was a black man, and he built the third great pyramids of Giza. And then there is this image of Menkaura, or we don't know if it's Menkaura or Shepseskaf. We don't know. Maybe it's Shepseskaf, maybe it's Menkaura. I compared this image to one of the statues from Benin, and they looked pretty much the same. Clearly another black male. So those were the images of the 4th dynasty. Again, do you still think that the 25th dynasty is the only one that had black pharaohs? Let's continue with the 5th dynasty, Dynasty 5. Dynasty 5 lasted from 2498 BC to 2345 BC. Now, who were the Dynasty 5 Nswt? We have Userkaf, Saura, Neferir-Kare, Shepseskare, Neferefre, Nusere, Menkaurhor, Jedkare, and Unas. We start with the first depiction we have of the Dynasty 5 Nswt, Userkaf. When I first saw this image, I thought maybe mixed, I don't know. But yeah, it still has those African features. I mean, you see the full lips are there, but his parentage is really unknown. The identity of his parents is unclear. This is one artwork, maybe that's when he was much younger. But then there's this other depiction of Userkaf, and here now the African features are back. Look at the features there. The nose is now quite broad, as Zahia was said, nose like this and lips like that. Yes, the nose is indeed like this and the lips are indeed like that. Userkaf was also probably a black man, or maybe a mixed race black man. That exists too. Anyway, we go to the next pharaoh, Sahura. Look at Sahura's features. I mean, look at those lips. Those lips don't lie. This is clearly a black male, and when you will see the next picture, you will understand what I'm saying, because you see the nose, you're like, oh, but the nose is a bit kind of alkaline, but still broad. We look at it from a closer angle, and you can see that that is clearly an African nose, and with a prognatism showing and full lips. Sahura was clearly a black male. And then we have the next depiction of the 5th dynasty. We have Neferefre. Neferefre, you can clearly see that this was a black male. Look at his features. I mean, the nose is gone, but look at his features, look at his lips, they're still there and very intact. And look at the hair. The hair reminds me of the hairstyle of Waves. Then I'm not the only one who has noticed that. Look at this picture. Pretty telling. This hairstyle of Waves is very old. It's 5,000 years old, or 4,500 years old or something. It's very old. Clearly, these are Waves. So yeah, Neferefre was clearly a black male. If you look at the picture from the profile here, the prognatism is pretty apparent, and look at the angle of the nose. Look at the angle of the nose of this African American male. Not all African people have flat noses, like real flat. Anyway, yes, I just said African men. To me, African Americans are Africans. Anyway, then we go to the next pharaoh of the 5th dynasty. We have imagery of Nusere. Nusere, this is the first time I see the pharaoh Nusere, because I'd always heard this name from Nusere Kalala Omotunde. May he rest in peace. I miss that man and his analysis. Yeah, Nusere. So this is the pharaoh he named himself after, Nusere. Right. So from this image, we can't really see everything. The image is not clear, but from this next one, Nusere's image is quite clear. We can see the features being represented. Full lips. I mean, even if the statue is fading already, but you can see that the facial prognatism is present. Now look at this next picture of Nusere. Nusere's statues are withering away. But yeah, on this statue, it's even more clear that the artist was representing a black man, because when you look at these lips, yes, these are typical African lips. The facial features, the African facial features are even more pronounced on this pharaoh Nusere. Look at the nose, quite broad, right? Quite really broad and flat. Now we move on to the last dynasty of the Old Kingdom, that is Dynasty 6. Dynasty 6 lasted from 2345 BC to 2181 BC. The Nswt of this period are Teti, then we have Pepi the First, then Merenre, and Pepi the Second. Now let's see which of these uncles left us some statues of his. We start with Teti, the first pharaoh of the 6th dynasty. Clearly a black male. Look at those features. There is a reason they don't show you these images. It's because of features like these. Features that are clearly African and really look African. All these statues, if you compare them to the Ife statues, you're like, these are Africans, man. Look at the nose there, very broad and flat, and the lips are also full. We don't have any other angles for this picture, so that is it for Teti. Now we move on to Pepi the First. Pepi, you had a weird face, or maybe it's your artist. Those eyes are huge. Anyway, look at the facial prognatism there. It's there like the subnasal prognatism, and his lips are quite full, and his nose is typically African, white, especially at the base. And then we have another image of Pepi the First. He really liked these, is this bronze or copper? I think this is copper. I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist. So yeah, look at the features from the profile view. Now here the subnasal prognatism is not as present, right? But it's not all Africans that have a strong subnasal prognatism. Again, the word typical means that many people do have it, but some don't. That's what typical means. Anyhow, we move on to the next picture of Pepi the First. Some scholars also say that it could be Merenre being represented here. We don't know. So I'm just gonna say Pepi or Merenre, they were related. They are from the same dynasty. Yeah, so now we look at Pepi and look at the hair on his head. This is clearly a depiction of kinky hair texture, the so-called kinky hair texture that I like to call African hair texture, like the really coiled African hair texture, short hair. That's what we see on Pepi's head over here, or Merenre's head. I'm just gonna say Pepi. And look at the facial prognatism, it's back, and look at the nose. He looks like an Ethiopian or a Kenyan, but this is a face that you could see in Africa. And then we have Merenre's head here. I think that could have been Merenre because, I mean, look at this statue and this one, but the shape of the hair is the same, right? Like, it's really the same. These are related. They are related. So, like, one is the father and one is the child. So, Merenre, Pepi, if Pepi is black and has kinky hair, or Merenre is black and has kinky hair, that means his father or his son also had the same features. Anyway, we go to the last picture of the collection of the Old Kingdom Nswt. I name Pepi II with his mom. Now, look at the features on this mother and her child. You have the subnasal prognatism. The nose is very telling. Broad again and flat. Again, nose like this and lips like that. Yes, the lips are indeed like that, Zahir Hawass. And look at her son. Her son has the same features. He even has a more pronounced subnasal prognatism, and his nose is pretty broad and flat. Right, these were the Old Kingdom uncles who ruled Kemet for about 1,000 years. Well, after seeing these original instead of some reconstruction, what do you think of their phenotypes? Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with what I've said here with my analysis. Are they correct in saying that none of these pharaohs were black Africans? Like none, even Nswt or Djoser, are they? You be the judge of that. In the next part, we're going to look at the Middle Kingdom pharaohs. If you want to see that part within a week, you know what to do. Get the video to 1,000 likes and you will get the next part very soon. Again, thank you the debunker for your great contribution. We are all grateful for this. Alright, that's it for this video. See you in the next one. Peace.